morning. Good morning and welcome to Sabbath School. We are so glad that you are all here. Happy Sabbath, everybody. My name is Vanessa Puich, and I am one of the vice principals here at Maplewood Academy, and we are so excited to share with you a little bit about our mission trip and some of the experiences our students had this year at Maplewood. So we're just going to take a moment here as you come on in and have a seat to introduce ourselves and have the students share just one small thing about themselves. Their grade, I think, will suffice. So go ahead.
Happy Sabbath, everyone. I am Jaylee, and I am going to be a sophomore at Maplewood Academy.
I'm Hannah, and I'm going to be a senior at Maplewood Academy.
And I'm Adriana, and I just graduated a few weeks ago from Maplewood Academy.
And my name's Nathan Shields. I'm the Vice Principal for Development and Alumni, and we're so happy to be here together with you guys this morning. Let's go ahead and bow our heads for prayer as we start this Sabbath school. Dear Lord, thank you so much for the Sabbath day. I just thank you for everyone who's here at camp meeting. Thank you for what you are doing here at Maplewood Academy with our students and staff, and I just pray that you come into our midst as we begin this Sabbath school. We're here to praise you and worship. Just be with us all today. Amen.
Give thanks with a grateful heart. Give thanks to the Holy One. Give thanks because He's given Jesus Christ, His Son. Give thanks with a grateful heart. Give thanks to the Holy One. Give thanks because He's given Jesus Christ, His Son. And now let the weak say, I am strong. Let the poor say, I am rich, because of what the Lord has done for us. And now let the weak say, I am strong. Let the poor say, I am rich, because of what the Lord has done for us. Give thanks. Give thanks with a grateful heart. Give thanks to the Holy One. Give thanks because He's given Jesus Christ, His Son. Give thanks with a grateful heart. Give thanks to the Holy One. Give thanks because He's given Jesus Christ, His Son. And now let the weak say, I am strong. Let the poor say, I am rich, because of what the Lord has done for us. And now let the weak say, I am strong. Let the poor say, I am rich, because of what the Lord has done for us. Give thanks.
Our next song will be Blessed Assurance, Jesus is Mine.
Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine.
Our next song is How Great Is Our God.
The splendor of the King, clothed in majesty. Let all the earth rejoice, let all the earth rejoice. He wraps himself in light, and darkness tries to hide, and trembles at his voice, and trembles at his voice. How great is our God? Sing with me, how great is our God? And all will see how great is our God. Age to age he stands, and time is in his hands. Beginning and the end, beginning and the end. The Godhead three in one. Father, Spirit, Son, the Lion and the Lamb, the Lion and the Lamb. How great is our God? Sing with me, how great is our God? And all will see how great is our God. Name above all names, you are worthy of all praise, and my heart will sing how great is our God. Name above all names, you are worthy of all praise, and my heart will sing how great is our God. And sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. And sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. How great is our God? Sing with me, how great is our God? And all will see how great is our God.
So the next song that we'll sing will be our closing song. This is a song that we sang at our mission trip, and it is very dear to almost every Hispanic that you talk to. It talks about the beautiful picture of the second coming of Jesus and how we may not have anything truly valuable in this world, but we have everything when we have Jesus. So please stand as we sing our closing song.
Esta vida faltan riquezas, sé que a la gloria tengo mi mansión, alma tan perdida entre las pobrezas de mi Jesucristo. Más allá del sol, más allá del sol, yo tengo hogar, hogar, bello hogar, más allá del sol, más allá del sol, más allá del sol, yo tengo hogar, hogar, bello hogar, más allá del sol. Así por el mundo yo voy caminando, nuevos me rodean y en tentación, pero Jesucristo que me está probando llevará mi salvo hasta su mansión, más allá del sol, más allá del sol, yo tengo hogar, hogar, bello hogar, más allá del sol. Desde cada raza del linaje humano puede impartirle plena salvación. Una bella casa hecha por su mano fue a prepararme a la salvación. Más allá del sol, más allá del sol, yo tengo hogar, hogar, bello hogar, más allá del sol. Yo tengo hogar, hogar, bello hogar, más allá del sol.
You may be seated.
I just want to mention on our piano was a recent graduate of Maplewood Academy as well, Julian Tenenko. So we just thank those guys for helping us out. We're really pleased to be able to be here and share with you our experiences this year and when we went to Puerto Rico. But we're going to start by introducing ourselves. Does everyone have a microphone? Okay, we'll pass. Okay. Go ahead. You start on your end. Just wait, it'll come.
I'm Kylie Anderson, and I'm going to be a junior this year.
I'm Johanna, and I'm going to be a senior this year.
I'm Linda Vigil, and I'm going to be a staff member this year.
I'm Hannah Dow, and I'm going to be a senior.
And I'm Adriana, and I'm a graduate.
This is just part of our group that went with us down to Puerto Rico. Just to give you a little bit of background, it was about a year ago that we actually decided and went before the board that we would try to go to Puerto Rico on our mission trip. And we work with a group out of the Youth for Centers Evangelism called We Care Missions. And our director there, Vern Bird, has done many of these mission trips, and he goes, I think you guys would really love going to Puerto Rico. And then what happened in September? Puerto Rico got hit not by one, but by 2 hurricanes. By that point, I had already put down payment on our airline tickets, but we didn't even know if we'd be allowed into the country. And actually, it wasn't until January that we finally got to say that, yep, we're going. But all the students, in great faith, we stepped forward, and the students began to raise their money. And praise God, we were able to go to Puerto Rico. And we had a multitude of people that went with us. I think as we counted up, we had 7 different decades of volunteers that came with us that worked on that mission trip. And it was really a blessing. We had several people from the conference that joined us. We had some families that joined us, as well as some of our students. So our total group size at one point was 27. And we worked hard. And that's just a little bit of the background to the story. One of the things that I give to the students before we ever go on a mission trip is a packing list. And the first item on the packing list is positive attitude. And ironically enough, that probably became our focus point throughout the entire trip, because, and the other thing I told the students, you've got to learn to be flexible. I think this is the one that pushed our flexibility and our positivity to its maximum, because there are many days it was like, okay, Lord, show us what we do today. And it's not because there wasn't work to be done, but it was just like, there's so much work to be done. Where do you start? And yet we had good people who worked with us, and it was a blessing, and we're going to show you some of those pictures today. So go ahead. This is our beginning. For some of the students, it may have been their first flight, but we had a nonstop flight, thanks to Sun Country, all the way into Puerto Rico. But the flying was probably the easy part on this trip. You notice there the roads. So students, tell me, did you like the roads? Adriana, you need to.
Okay. So you see this road, it's a nice road, but then you put it into perspective, it's with traffic going both directions. And they're not going at 40 or 50, they're going at like 80 miles an hour. And in this one, it is actually called the curve of death, which like 80 people die on it a year, because you obviously can't see around the corner. And usually there's either rock on one side and a cliff on the other, so no. The roads are very dangerous.
And when we got there, it was dark, and so we had no idea where we were going, and like whipping around the curves in the dark was really scary.
And then they talked about a bridge that we drove over. Oh yeah, the bridge has been here for probably 50, 60 years, and I go, well, how did it do with the hurricane? Well, it probably got some stress. Really? I think we only went over that thing maybe once or twice, because we had found another road and avoided the bridge. But yeah, it was quite an experience. And the roads also had obviously been impacted by the hurricane. And many of the roads are near the camp where we were staying, and we stayed in the interior of Puerto Rico, not on the coast. We were in the interior in the mountains. That's where a lot of the damage was done. We don't have a lot of pictures to show you of a lot of the other island damage, but note that we were without electricity the entire week. It was run on generators. And they were hoping, we saw electric trucks, working on the companies working out there trying to get electricity, but we ran by generator. And one night the gentleman forgot to turn it on. Boy, it's really black, because there's no lights, and very dark. And the kids are going like, how do we take showers? I go, with a flashlight? So it was quite dark, but then finally they would come on. But the generator would only literally run at night to give us lights. And then they would go off throughout the entire day. And even the church that we worked in had no electricity. Everything is done with generator power. All right, so it was interesting, but the roads were impacted, roads were washed out. It was literally, that looks like one lane. Now imagine that down to a half a lane, because that's what some of the roads had been washed out to. But nonetheless, they were safe, people there. Their spirit of, I'm going to do this, we're going to get our island back up and going, was huge. And we were really privileged to be able to work with those people. The next picture will actually show us some of the camp. We actually went to Ilayos Burgos, and I'm terrible at Spanish, so that's probably, I slaughtered that. But this is the camp that we went to, and these are some of the different buildings that we stayed in. Two of the different cabins. You see a large administration building there on your right, and just the grounds themselves. One of the interesting things to note was when the hurricane went through, afterwards they said there was not a leaf left on the trees. but you can just see the forgiveness of nature and the mercy of God, even in how the growth has come back and it's beautiful again. Of course, a lot of the limbs are missing, but nonetheless, it is coming back to life. All right, so this is where we stayed. This is where we focused some of our work, and that's what we're going to start telling you about, is the work that we actually did on this camp. Okay, next. All right, who wants to talk about crushing cans? Kylie, go for it.
Okay, so they had bags, like, I don't know how many trash bags, or they had piles of pop cans, and were they like over the mountain thing? So
throwing down the edge.
So like the first thing we did all together as a team was we crushed like tons of cans and we bagged them all up for recycling. And it was actually a really cool experience. It was like team building. We were all working together, and yeah, it was really cool. And just seeing the amount that we got and cleaning up the area and how much of a difference it made, it was cool.
Johanna, tell us what came out of the pop cans.
Oh yeah, so while we were like stomping on the pop cans, every once in a while a cockroach would run out.
Lots of lovely little creatures for us. Okay, we'll go back one more. I think in the end, you guys came up with 10 bags of crushed cans. And unfortunately, they were taken care of. We were worried, well, what are going to happen to them now? But they had a large camporee that came in our second weekend there. The adventurers came in, and by that time, those cans were gone. Okay. Okay, this is...
Okay, so one of the main things that me and Kylie did was we painted lines in a parking lot. Now, in America, that's easy. In Puerto Rico, they gave us a long board, a 2-inch roller, and a can of paint and said, have fun. So the guys measured out a ton of lines. I think there were 3 parking lots. And then us girls would follow up behind and paint a bunch of lines. Now, Kylie, I'm gonna call OCD, because when I went through with a roller, she would come through and every line, like 15 minutes, she'd go and fill every single little dot and crack that I would miss. So it was an experience, but it was fun, and yeah, it was fun. We got very tan and very hot, but it was fun.
Oh, talk about the steps.
Oh yeah, and then the camp had a bunch of stairs, and they paint the edge of every stair yellow. Yeah, and so we went through the camp and we found every single stair and we would paint every one yellow. And we had Ollie and Oscar and Ollie Swanson Lane, who were with us, and they were like, what, 6 and 8? And one of the little boys would come up and he would try to do a stair, and you would find like a handprint or a footprint of yellow paint next to it.
We left our mark. We have a heart somewhere put on one of the steps too. Okay? All right, go on. Oh man. This was a job. In fact, 3 of us were involved in this job. And yeah, it was not a fun job. So Adriana, you start, and Johanna, go on.
Okay, so we power wash. This is like their gym. They don't really have enclosed gym because it would get too hot and too expensive to keep cool. So all they do is they build ceilings like this and then they play underneath them. But because of how much rain they've had, it was black when we started. And so Charity and I spent basically from 8 to 12 just power washing the whole gym. And we're like, okay, we're done. And he's like, no, you gotta power wash the driveway beside it and the whole parking lot in front of it. So that was a whole nother adventure.
By that time, the students go, I'm not power washing. So then Johanna got in on the process.
Yeah, so I started power washing, and I thought, oh, this is actually going to be kind of fun, I thought. But then it was like really hot, and I was like power washing, and I was like, oh, it's looking clean. And then all the water, all the dirty water would just go right back in that spot. But yeah, it was fun though.
But then we didn't do it right one day, so we had to redo it the next day. And then on the picture on the upper right, the driveway literally there beside it on the left, we didn't realize that's what he meant we had to wash. And so our assistant girls dean, Elena Rivera, went with us. And by that point, none of the students wanted to touch a power washer. And so Elena and I washed that whole driveway, I guess you could say. It did look a lot better, but I have to say, I don't think I've ever washed a street before. But it looks pretty nice now. But it was filthy and black and just full of dirt and probably even some mold, probably basically from the hurricane damage. So, yeah. Okay, you did painting. Go ahead. Yeah, all the benches and stuff.
Okay. So one of the other things that they did was painting benches, and so these benches, they had a lot of dirt on them. They're kind of old, and so one of the things you would do was you would scrape all the dirt and I don't know if it was paint or something on there, and we were scraping it off, and then they would paint it. But it actually looked really nice afterwards, so it was pretty fun.
One advantage of having a lot of moms come along, they see things that need to be done, and we would do them. I don't know if the kids necessarily wouldn't wanted to do it, but it was great. They were very open to watching and seeing things that needed to be done, and it definitely made a difference. The camp looked really, really good by the time the adventurers came on in. Okay, next one. All right, none of the students that are actually worked on this, but this was the sign that hung on the road right by when you came into camp. But you wouldn't have noticed it because it was literally black with mold and you could hardly read it at all. And actually it was kind of amazing that the letters were actually red to begin with. We wouldn't have known that at all. And so some students took it down, they scrubbed it. You see a couple kids scrubbing it, and then they also started to repaint it. And by the time that we got done, it was hung back up, but we forgot to take a picture of it hung back up. But now you could actually see it when you came to the camp. But that ended up being a couple-day process because you have to remember, Puerto Rico is hot, but it's also humid. So things don't dry as quickly as what we would see here. Okay. All right.
So they had this gigantic rock with our Adventist symbol on it, but it had become old and you can barely read what it says. So they asked Charity and myself to repaint it, and that's the beginning of it. We repainted the Adventist, the TLT logo with the 3 angels messages on it, and then they had a blue blank wall when you go into the camp, and so we painted a beautiful welcome sign for them, and they were really happy about that.
And to me, it was really cool. We had Adriana along and about 2 other students who could do this kind of stuff, and freehand. I told her when I said, this is one of the reasons why you were on this trip, because I said, we wouldn't have been able to do this. And so it was really showing that God put the right people on our trip that needed to be there for a reason.
And the people were so proud of the sign once they saw it. Coco, one of the workers there, he wanted lots of pictures with it and was showing everyone it.
We'll show you the completed picture in just a minute. There was a lot of ground cleanup that needed to be done. Obviously, with a hurricane, we see what happened just with storms and winds around here. And a lot of it had been done, but there were many things. We went around the camp. Because of this camporee coming in with the adventurers, we needed to remove debris. And so we did that. We create piles beside the road. And then we would, get people. Spencer Blackie's down there on the right. He actually came on the trip with us, and I think he wore that leaf blower too many days, poor guy. And then we had Michael Rivera doing weed whacking. It was just one of those jobs that everybody was involved in. And of course, there was also having to repair some concrete. And so we have concrete work being done as well. And this shows them working on the concrete, repairing sidewalks that roots had broken up. So they were able to redo that, and so that everything was ready. And you can see the lines that the kids are painting, waiting for them to get done with this spot so they can paint the last few lines in on that parking lot. And that's the completed work. Okay, in terms of at the camp, you'll notice the sign that Adriana and Charity, did Winnie help you on that one too? Yeah, and then the one on the walls. And that's our full group that we took a picture together because we wanted to make sure, because some of the group had to leave a little early and go back. And so this is all of us before we begin stage 2 of our work there in Puerto Rico. Okay, on the stage here, you probably noticed there's these plants right here, okay, on either side. That's bamboo like we see here. That's bamboo like you see in Puerto Rico, all right? And it was growing up behind this one church that we were going to be working on. And in the lower right, you can actually see where they have cut, and there's remaining logs right there. That's the stalk or the trunk of that bamboo. And there was a lot of it. And they did you can see our guys out there trying to cut that. And they kept thinking, why do we have to wear long sleeves? Well, because you didn't want to have to get some of the things that were, flying around in there, or the splinters coming off of the bamboo as it broke. But it was huge. It was huge. And help me if I think they said it can grow up to a foot a day.
Yeah.
Okay, so a foot a day. So this is like, even though we've cut this down, it's like, it's probably through, how many? Oh man, it's huge by now. Again, they probably need us to come back and cut some more. That was how we began. Go ahead.
We had to, the boys had to get it down because after the storm, it was brushing up against the church, and it was creating leaks, and it was ruining their ceiling. So we had to, they had to cut it down, push it away.
The second project that we began to work on, go to the next one, was a church project. This is the little church that's only about 5 to 10 minutes away from the camp itself. It received damage in the hurricane. We were told about it the very first Sabbath that we got there, and we said, yeah, we hope we can be able to help you guys out. And we didn't know how much work there'd be at camp, but it did turn out that we were able to go and help at this church. But one of the things you can see on the right, the upper picture on the right, they were wanting to actually enclose those to make it a complete room. So to build additional block wall on that. So we had to clean it and scrape things off first of all, but then they had to bring, of course, block in to be able to do that block work. Now, those of you who have ever been on a mission trip, you know that timing isn't always American timing. You have to kind of go with what happens. We placed an order for the supplies on Monday. They said it would come Tuesday. They said it would come Wednesday. They said it would come Thursday. It did, finally. Thursday morning. But that meant we literally had 2 days in which to try to create a wall and to also paint that church. Okay, waiting for supplies. And literally, I think most of the work, you guys, go to the next one. I think it has them unloading the block. That was Thursday morning, right? Okay, so Adriana, talk about the block building. You were part of that, and because you actually didn't start till after lunch on Thursday, right?
Yep. Okay. So first we had to get the block off the truck, then organize it. And after that, it was grab and go. They actually taught me how to mix concrete, how to pour concrete, how to make sure the wall is level, how to set block, and actually I was having a blast. It's like big Legos. So that was really fun. But no, we were like, we had to finish it before sunset on Friday. So I remember the boys wouldn't even stop to like eat. They would bring them food, they would chug it down, and then we would keep working on the block because we really wanted to finish the walls before we left. And one day it was so hot, and everyone started to get to that point where everyone is getting really angry at each other and impatient. And all of a sudden, Corey's like, "Do you hear that sound?" And everyone turns around, they're like, "It's an ice cream truck." Like, where do you see an ice cream truck out in the middle? Like, we were literally in the middle of the island. The ice cream truck came, and Corey's dad actually bought us all ice cream, and so we were celebrating, and then we went back to work. So that was our push to finish the work on Thursday.
Actually, that happened Friday.
Oh, Friday.
That happened Friday, yeah. Now, some of us didn't go there Thursday because they didn't know for sure if they'd even get started. In fact, did all of us still stay at camp, or did you guys?
I think so.
I was at camp. We were all at camp? See, we were still painting lines and finishing up there and beautifying the place. Oh, and one of the things that we did, we had to pick up all that debris. We couldn't leave it just lay there. And so we picked it up, and they just dump it over the ravines. Just be wary of ever picking up coconut, because coconuts can turn rotten, and then they can leak all over you, or leak all over the stuff you're picking up. And put it this way, I left my pants in Puerto Rico because that smell was like nothing you can imagine. Yeah, so we finished that cleanup job on that afternoon, and then we all joined at the church the next day. Okay, this shows more building of the block wall. I should say the gentleman that's on the right picture, his name is Warren Cowgill. Warren was a wonderful helper to us. He's our helper that was part of We Care. And he's actually a contractor out of Kansas who comes and just does this, and he worked with our group. and really, really a good man, and guided us along. And he was bent on trying to get that wall done for sure. Wait, how much? You only got 2 of the 3 walls done, though, right?
We got 2.5.
2.5. Okay. All right. Okay. So some of you guys were involved in this process.
Okay, so we had to scrape off all of the old paint in the church and on the outside of the church, which some of it came off like really easy. Some of it you could just pull off. Some of it didn't come off that easy. And then if you look in the top left, there's like a grate in front of the window. We had to repaint those as well. And then there was some paint hanging off like the ceiling parts, and we had to scrape that as well.
Okay, guys, you can talk about painting here. Okay, Kylie, go.
Okay. So after we scraped all of the walls and made it sure like it was smooth to be able to paint, we started, and I think we had an issue with like communication on the color. And so once we had finished the whole inside, they we figured out that they had wanted it a different color. I don't know if they were gonna fix it, but
I don't know, but that in itself is a miracle, because we had gotten, I think it was, help me out, those of you, was it 2 5-gallon buckets of this one kind of like beigey kind of paint? So we painted the inside. That was supposed to be on the outside.
yeah.
But you know what? Those 2 5-gallon buckets covered that whole church inside and outside.
Mm-hmm.
So it was definitely that God knew that needed to continue to be covered, and it was. Okay.
And once we finished, it looked so much cleaner and so much nicer.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so in the top picture, we have Kylie's mom, who painted there was a cross, and then so we painted that wall one color, but then inside the cross was painted another color. And she was up there painting when the pastor came up and said something to Adriana to tell her. So Adriana's gonna tell her what he told her.
You know, being a translator puts you in a sticky situation sometimes. The pastor was basically saying that she was being too nitpicky in a very sarcastic Puerto Rican way. And so I didn't really know how to translate that, so I was just laughing, and by me laughing, they assumed that he was, you know, giving her a hard time, and that was funny.
The really cool part about this whole thing is, I mean, it got to be difficult to paint. You think about it, at this point we had 21 people. Some were building the wall, but literally some were rolling, people were underneath you, and you just had to trust that they weren't going to get you all painty. But man, it was just like a machine in that church. Boom, 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 and people were around the windows, and I was above them, then below them. And it went really well, except Kylie. Tell them what happened with the guy in the door.
I was like painting above the door, and there were some people that were fixing one of the doors. Oh. And so I don't know what happened, but I was just going at it, and next thing I know, I had painted the dude's arm. And he's like, "What happened?" And I'm like, "Oh my goodness, sorry."
In the bottom picture, you see a door. They actually installed another door because before the hurricane, the church had been broken into 3 times, and their sound system had been stolen 3 times, as well as pretty much everything, including buckets and brooms.
Yeah, which is why you see all the different bars on the windows in that area. They needed just for security. Okay. All right. Next one. So just more of the painting. I mean, like literally, everybody got in the process. You're, high, low. See the brick wall on the bottom. Okay. Oh, here's the ice cream rescue day. Okay. Literally, that was the middle of Friday afternoon, and Adriana was right. We were shot. We didn't want to keep going, and yet we weren't done. And this was, I just still remember Corey go, "What? Do you hear that?" That was great. That was a blessing for sure. Oh. Okay, next one. All right. We met some really, really special people there, and that's what makes a mission trip, is the people that you meet, and we want to share some stories about some of those people.
So Ivan is the one to your left, top left, in the pink. As soon as he heard that there were missionaries out at camp, he came and he's like, what do you guys need? What do you guys need? He brought us saws, he brought us construction tools, from ladders to shovels to anything we needed. And if he forgot something, he's like, I'll be right back in 10 minutes, and he would run to his home, he'd come back, and he really just loved us so much, to the point where he's like, you guys are invited to my home, you know that? And we're like, okay, thank you. And then he's like, well, I have a pool. And Andrew's like, we're going right now. So, yeah, his home was beautiful. He really he literally told us, I love you guys like family. And so that was just amazing.
His home was beautiful, his driveway was scary.
Oh, yeah.
Because they literally told us to just gun it. If you stop, you're not going to make it up because it's like a hill. So we gunned it. And there's a turn in the middle. So you go up and you just do a sharp turn and then you keep going up. Yeah, it was great.
It would never be a road you could drive on in Minnesota in the wintertime, ever. Ever. We did use the brakes on the way down, though. Okay.
On Sabbath, Ivan...
Oh, yeah, here's his house. Let me just tell one really cool story is he sits at the top of a mountain.
Oh, yeah.
He watched the hurricane come in. And he realized there was something on his roof that he needed to get. Was it his power source or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys remember the rest of the story. Go ahead.
He stood on the roof holding his power source onto the roof during the hurricane because he didn't want to lose power, apparently. And he's on the top of a mountain, so I mean, think about the wind. He was standing on his roof holding his power source.
Right below him is this deep gorge. And a lot of chickens ended up being down there. I guess they came there for safety during the storm. They flew in, and ironically enough, he now has a chicken farm with about 1,000 chickens down there. So he got blessed from the storm as well, and so he's selling eggs and chickens.
And funny story, Winnie is the one touching the grass. So I love Winnie. The whole time she's like, but how do people live on top of the mountain? Like, how does it work? So finally, Ivan's like, here, I'll take it. So he took Winnie and I and someone else. And we finally got out and we were on the top of the mountain. And Winnie's like, this is top of mountain grass. And she was just so happy. It was, it's the little things in life that really make it.
Winnie was also great in the fact that she would talk to the chickens.
Oh, yeah.
Never seen people really, have a conversation with a chicken. And it's interesting because when we gave our mission trip report to the student body, she goes, what's wrong with talking to chickens? You guys talk to your dogs and cats. I can talk to chickens. So,
And they would respond.
They would. It was hilarious. Yeah. Okay, who wants to talk about Coco? Kylie.
Okay. So the person in the middle or on the left, he was our cook. His name is Coco, and he was just such a sweet man, and he made delicious Puerto Rican food. And he always has a smile, and he would try to communicate with you, even if you didn't, I'm not good at Spanish or understanding. And so he would try to communicate and try to teach me, and he'd always be sitting in his chair, showing us videos and pictures of his kids, and he was so sweet.
Okay, do you want to mention Birdman?
Oh yeah, and another person was Birdman. He was pretty cool, and he had this Chihuahua, and we were friends. It was fun.
Birdman is like the Merlin. You guys know Merlin Gottfried at Maplewood Academy, our maintenance man? That's Birdman. Okay, and this is Warren in the lower right. Okay, next one. Okay, Sabbath. Oh, the cool thing is we did finish the church. Sun was going down. The church was completed, and there was just this feeling of great joy to know. We didn't go back for supper at the time that Coco was waiting for us. We knew we were going to finish, and God blessed. As the sun went down, the last doors were closed on the paint cans. We had finished, and we were just so blessed that God had taken care of, even guarding the hours of the Sabbath for us. But Saturday came, and we went down to that church for the church service. And they were so gracious and appreciative. I think we were all just humbled. It's kind of like, well, we really didn't do that much. All we did was paint, but it made a difference for them. your guys' reactions to church service?
It was really special and touching how they appreciated our work. And one of the things they did for us, well, they served us food, and like they served us. We didn't get up and go get it. They brought plates to us while we were sitting down. And then afterwards we came inside and they all had a special gift for each of us. And they'd call us up front and then they would like shake our hands and hug us, and it was really cool.
Funny story, we were supposed to go back to the camp to eat lunch. That was the plan. Coco had made us food. We were going to go back and eat lunch. Well, we didn't know that they were going to feed us, so we're sitting there eating, and I think we had pretty much finished eating when a truck comes by and starts honking at us and parks in the church parking lot. And it's Coco and Birdman coming to look for us because we hadn't come to lunch and they were afraid, I don't know, we had crashed or something. So they came looking for us to tell us that they had made us food and we didn't show up.
So they cared. But the church looks pretty good, doesn't it? I mean, you can see it behind us. And it was a really, really great experience to be with them. Okay, next one. We did allow the students to have a couple of fun days. We didn't realize that down there Sunday no one really does anything. They don't work. And so that happened to be our fun day. So we took kids to the beach. We went to Old San Juan. Hoped we could have stopped to see Old San Juan, but there was so much traffic. All we did was drive around Old San Juan, which took us, I don't know, 2 hours. And, but we at least saw parts of it, and we had a really good experience with that. Also impressed, especially the boys, with the cars that you see pictured there, okay? And this is one of the things that I thought was pretty cool. Birdman came, he actually went to a coconut tree, cut down all these coconuts, brought them back to camp for all the students to share. So Johanna, what did it taste like?
Oh, it was like really good. I've actually never liked coconuts before when I get them at the store, but it was like so refreshing, and I was like working that day and I was like so thirsty. It tasted so good. And I didn't know that coconuts had a green thing around it. I just thought it was the brown thing, but.
Yeah, we had lessons in agriculture as well. That's the last one. I think the thing as we are trying to wrap up, okay, yeah. Tell them just quickly about adventurers coming in.
I'm gonna say
When we got back to camp on Friday night, when we drove in, all of a sudden all these little adventurers come everywhere, and there were like over 200 of them. And the kids were so excited. I don't know what happened to our students at that point. They just dispersed. And they went to say hi to all the kids, and they were out there loving on those kids. And it was a really neat experience to be able to have our kids who had been involved in Pathfinders be able to interact with some of these little kids. And the leaders there were so appreciative. The camp looks wonderful. What have you guys done? And again, we're thinking like, oh, we just picked up stuff. Not that big of a deal. But again, they were so appreciative of what we had done. But you know, all of this doesn't happen without God intervening in what we call some of our miracle stories. And one of the miracle stories I want to have Kylie share is about how her and her family, or she and her family were able to come with us.
Yeah. So basically, my family and I decided to come on the mission trip like a month before we actually left. And like previously, I had talked to my parents. I'm like, I would really like to go on the mission trip. It'd be really cool. And we were thinking that this year probably wouldn't be the best year. I should just wait for like senior year or junior year. And so I had kind of forgotten about it and just like given up on the idea. And all the deadlines that you had to give in your money and all your paperwork, all of them had been like long gone and taken care of. And so then there was one email, I think, that my dad got, and they were still looking for a couple sponsors to go with. And my mom's like, well, maybe you and your dad should go on the mission trip. And so I think I had talked to Mrs. Vigil about it, and she's like, well, there could be still space for your whole family to come if you wanted to. And so I went home and talked to my parents about it, and we didn't really have a schedule or a plan, and so we were like, well, I don't know if it's actually going to happen. But it was the day that Mrs. Vigil was calling and ordering the tickets, like it was final, and my dad had talked to his coworkers and had gotten off the time. And so I ran up to Mrs. Vigil's office when my dad had told me we could go. And she was on the phone, and she's like, okay, hold on just a second. Can I call you back? And so the next thing you know, my whole family was on the mission trip. And we were a little concerned about the finances and being able to raise the money. And so we sent out letters, and within like 2 or 3 weeks, we had more than enough for, like, I think 3 of us to go. And so it was such a miracle to see how God wanted us to go.
And many of you are the reason why that happened. Many of you are the reason that it happened, and we want to thank you. I know both of you guys want to add something to that. I mean, go ahead. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's a good one. But I just want to say thank you so much. For those of you, I know there were churches that supported people to go. I know that many of you probably gave money to some of these students. They were able to do this because you responded to God's call on your heart. And we can't do this without you. So thank you so much. There are a couple other cool miracles, though.
Yeah, kind of to wrap up. As we were going, I was talking to some of the locals, and they were actually saying, like, man, you guys are definitely blessed or something, because they were saying how ever since the hurricane, they have gone rain nonstop, rain every day. But the day we got there, there was no rain. The whole time we were there, there was no rain, and when we left, it started to rain again. So God really kind of put an umbrella to make sure we could get all the work that needed, and then brought the rain back again. So that was cool.
Yeah. Those are the things that happen on mission trips. And we're so grateful that we had the opportunity to be able to take students, to be able to take families from here in our conference. And again, I thank you. I thank you for what God has done working with us and what you guys enabled us to also accomplish. So let's bow our heads for prayer. Our Father, I just want to thank you so much for the opportunity to share what a wonderful time you directed us on in Puerto Rico. Father, I thank you for the people here, the conference people, the churches, the individuals that supported us. Lord, I thank you for each one of the students and the families that went on this trip. Lord, we were touched by the wonderful people in Puerto Rico. We ask, God, that you would continue to bless them there, particularly as they face yet another storm season starting shortly. I just pray for the safety on that island. And may God, we want to just thank you for the Sabbath day and for the privilege of being able to worship together as a large church family here in Hutchinson. And we ask for blessings on this day. In Jesus' name, amen.